The silent crisis, losing ourselves in the noise. Often, we are so caught up in daily life, pleasing others, chasing success or avoiding pain, that we forget to pause and look inward. We neglect our inner voice, bury our dreams, and silence our discomfort. We numb ourselves with distractions instead of asking, what am I truly feeling? What do I really want? This silent crisis is the greatest suffering of the modern human, the forgetting of the self. We build lives based on expectations, parents, partners, employers, social media. We wear masks so perfectly crafted that we forget our real face. We become efficient machines, reliable citizens, and likable companions. But behind closed doors, in the stillness of our own presence, we feel the hollowness. There is a weariness that success cannot cure and a loneliness that companionship cannot touch. Because the ache is not about the world outside, it's about the world within that we've abandoned. Look within. Dare to hear the voice you silence every day. You've built a fortress of others, their opinions, their expectations, their judgments. For you, they are not just important, they're your shield. When things go wrong, it's easy to say they didn't let you, they stopped you, they held you back. But deep down, isn't that a lie you've told yourself too long? This is the core of the suffering. We outsource responsibility for our lives to others, then grieve the loss of freedom we never claimed. We pass the blame to avoid the sting of failure, to dodge the weight of choice, because if blame never touches us, then our fragile self-image remains untouched. But something else does get touched, our spirit. It is bruised every time we pretend not to care, every time we ignore the whisper that says, this isn't who I am. What about you? The one buried under all that noise, the one aching to be seen, to be heard, to be real. You become a ghost in your own story, an echo of others' voices, a shell dressed up in achievements, striving not for joy, but for validation. And the tragedy is, the more you succeed by others' standards, the more distant you become from your own truth. This suffering is invisible. It doesn't scream. It doesn't bleed. It simply erodes, quietly, slowly, the inner life of a person. Until one day there's nothing left to numb it with. The distractions no longer work. The roles feel hollow, and you're left staring at the mirror wondering, who am I, really? The real awakening begins here, when the pain of ignoring yourself becomes heavier than the fear of facing yourself. When you stop running, stop blaming, and sit, uncomfortable, exposed and trembling, before your own truth. It begins with small, almost imperceptible acts, a moment of honesty in a conversation, a boundary held without guilt, a desire finally voiced. These moments are not grand declarations. They are quiet revolutions. They say, I exist, not as a reaction, not as a reflection, but as a presence, a force. You matter, not because others approve, but because you are. You breathe, you feel. You carry dreams that belong to no one else. And those dreams, however faint, however buried, are worthy of light. Healing begins when we listen, when we stop betraying ourselves in order to belong, when we stop chasing applause and start asking what brings me alive, when we sit with our discomfort not as enemies to be defeated, but as messengers asking to be heard. This is not easy work. It is humbling. It is sometimes terrifying, because reclaiming the self means grieving the time lost. It means forgiving the parts of you that gave in, that stayed silent, that conformed. But it also means beginning again, not with blame, but with truth. You are not what they made of you. You are what you choose to become. And when you choose to return to yourself, to listen, to act from your truth, you light a fire. Not the kind that burns, but the kind that warms. The kind that makes you visible again. First to yourself, then to the world. This is the quiet revolution our time calls for. People who are no longer ghosts, no longer puppets, no longer passengers. People who dare to inhabit themselves fully, who say no when it hurts and yes when it heals, who walk not to please but to be whole. Because the world doesn't need more perfect people, it needs more real ones. And that starts with you, finally seeing yourself, hearing yourself, choosing yourself. Own your life, be the I that steps out from behind them.